So thank you. Here we are at the close of our 2 days. We've been, how long has it been since we started talking about this? And here we are at the end. It seems pretty incredible. Yeah, a long, long time. And I want to say some things about the trust. And not all of you are aware of the activities of the Citizen Advocacy Trust of Australia and its relationship to Citizen Advocacy Australia and all of that. This trust started in the context of a program collapse. Most of the New South Wales programs had either closed, including Tamworth, Narrabri, and the metro programs of East Side, North Side, and City West, as well as many similar counterparts in Victoria. For some of you, you've never heard of those programs. Right. Then came the closure of CA New South Wales. Only Wollongong and Ridehunters Hill continued. Citizen Advocacy Victoria Resource Unit had closed some time earlier, eventually only leaving Sunbury and North East as the remaining 2 citizen advocacy programs in this state. Barbara Page Hannafy and Kelly Haynes and myself considered what a national fundraising entity might be able to do, which aimed at insulating remaining programs against the sudden death and by providing financial incentives, projects and good practices that were consistent with the Citizen Advocacy Model. We took our idea to the National Citizen Advocacy Conference held in Rockhampton in September 2004. Some of you were there, where those present endorsed and supported our proposal. We obtained the pro bono legal services of Free Hills in Sydney, and Citizen Advocacy Australia and its ancillary trust came into being in 2005. From such bitter experience, we realised the citizen advocacy programs would not respond to anything they perceived as compulsion or coercion. Sovereignty seemed a big issue in the minds of many programs, and that programs had to want to operate according to the Citizen Advocacy Model, and that they would need to apply diligently to themselves, or else in time they would flounder, as they inevitably do. Indeed, without the guide rails of the Citizen Advocacy Model, program practices can literally go in any direction. So to that end, Citizen Advocacy Australia wanted to administer the trust as an invitation to programs to be involved in the study and application of the Citizen Advocacy Model. The trust certainly wanted to assist programs be more programmatically stable, especially given the demise of so many, and for boards to be truly capable in their recruitment and support to staff. But if programs chose to be isolated from many or most of the educational opportunities available, there was nothing the trust could do about that. There's always the risk of programs ending up with inexperienced but business-oriented board, running a program with staff who are also new and inexperienced, but who feel they know enough to negate the necessity for learning from others. And as a case in point, the Trust has had a grant available for over 2 years now for a staff exchange, with one program already offering free accommodation to enable staff or board from other programs to visit and learn alongside of each other. And there have been no takers for that grant. There have been, though admittedly, of course, well, COVID was in the middle of it, but that's just an excuse. Our efforts have been well-intentioned and remained focused, but our capacity to deliver has been feeble, given that our major barrier has been to recruit a sufficient number of talented board members, especially ones that were capable and enthusiastic about fundraising in order to see our goals become realised. For instance, we've not obtained sponsorships from major companies. We have not attracted and involved wealthy philanthropists and well-known persons or run large campaigns. Though we have run a number of successful fundraising events, our strength has been in our grant giving and less in our fundraising. I think there's a problem about that. To that end, the Trust has given out some 22 grants totalling $36,000. We continue to support the Citizen Advocacy Study Group, and we will always support CAPES whenever requests are received, but sadly that is seldom. We've welcomed interest from new people keen to explore starting a new program, such as that expressed by Joe Lynham, who's here with us, and Ricky Esterquest from Townsville, and possibly even Julie Dunn, who's doing some work in Cairns to try and get a new program going. But for any entity to strengthen and maintain good citizen advocacy practice, that entity itself has to be sufficiently strong, and the trust is not. Our board is presently just 3 people. It's our quorum. And any less, we're unable to make and enact decisions, and we become really non-viable. One of the real strengths to emerge out of the organisation of the conference was the planning committee. The planning committee and its members have been just wonderful. Now, that's our perspective, maybe not yours. It works so well, and our heartfelt thanks to all of your willingness and effort to make this conference your own. I wonder if there might be interest in continuing. Well, not weekly, thankfully, right? But perhaps 3 times a year to confer with members of the trust about what you think is most important to pursue. The membership could be open, and it would need to develop its own terms of reference. So there's a thought to carry away, maybe to discuss when you next meet to review the success of the conference. I've been the Citizen Advocacy Australia chair now for 17 of its 18 years, a year off when Kelly Haynes stepped into that role and I was the financial director. That was a big break. I think the trust would benefit from someone new to bring fresh ideas, energy and impetus to our mission. So our door is open. Trust board members cannot be current staff or board members of CA programs. I think there's a conflict of interest in that. But they can be advocates. And even if you could spare just a year or 2, we would love to hear from you. We'd especially like to hear from past board members and staff of CA programs who would like perhaps to obtain a national perspective on things, knowing what support programs might feasibly require and receive. We think we have made a modest loss for the conference, but we were prepared for that, knowing what benefit it would likely bring to the Australian movement coming back together after such a long period of isolation, and especially because the CA study group couldn't meet either, and the relationships that have been forged and strengthened by being here. But as Wolf said, human enterprises are destined for eventual collapse, and so too, without additional involvement, one option is to let the Citizen Advocacy Australia and its ancillary trust fold. It would mean the loss of something that has a national focus, something no single program can have, but it also might allow for a national association of citizen advocacy programs to emerge that could have most benefits the trust provides and possibly more some. There are many possibilities. It would be sad, though, to see our citizen advocacy efforts rely purely on Caesar for survival. As Wolfensberger said, and I can give you the reference for this, I think it extremely naive to look to Caesar for relief from oppression. Do not put your trust in princes. Caesar is always the imperial power or is allied to it, and you will never get genuine relief from it. By definition, there will always be lowly people on the bottom, and Caesar is a major part of the control mechanism at the top. People who naively look to Caesar for salvation will be betrayed by their idol, because all idols will eventually betray their worshippers, and in between they will usually demand human sacrifices. Thank you to all those who played such an important part in preparing for and conducting this conference. A big thank you to Bridie Smith, and especially to Mark Vagan, who really took the lead on the organisation of this conference. And they had so much happening in their lives you wouldn't believe, but here they still rolled their sleeves up and got it done. To Heather Hindle, who thought she was retiring from the board, but who made the mistake of setting a conference in motion and thinking that she could leave. We had news for her, hey. We very much appreciate all that you've done, Heather. To Zana, who's come all this way to be with us in person. How we love seeing you and learning from you, Zana. You've fed us and our feeble efforts for decades now. I never forget that conference, that week-long workshop that you ran with AJ in Sydney, and how memorable that was. And we're so appreciative of you, your knowledge, your fun, and your presence. And to our patron and dear friend, Barbara Page Hannafy, who's made such an effort to be here, for her eternal and unrelenting dedication to citizen advocacy and the principles of how to make many good matches. Now, some have hated you for that, Barb, but it just comes with the territory, hey? Their programs and their false claims don't exist anymore. It's just what happens when you turn your back on what is known to work and be effective, in spite of their prideful declarations about inventing a new way of doing things. But Barb remained unmoved, and we thank you so much for that, Barb. And to you who've come to this conference, have given aside time, your weekend, the expense for being here, your enthusiasm and your eagerness to learn, and your love of each other. And so we so appreciate your presence. You've made the conference, from our perspective, I think, though we haven't yet discussed it, but we'll set aside some meeting time for that. And the fact that it's felt just great being here with you and seeing your faces and getting your hugs has just been so important.